The other part of the FRAC Act would bring hydraulic fracturing under EPA permitting. So there is this investigation, this hunt for the chemicals in groundwater, even when they're not being disclosed as to exactly what those chemicals are. But you're still finding them turning up, and this is why it was so significant that this came out yesterday at the EPA in Dimmock, and I think that was planned to be a kind of opening moment of Victoria Schweitzer's testimony yesterday. And
Abrahm Lustgarten, are you seeing in the EPA under Obama a new willingness to investigate this in this issue of fracking, and especially the issue of the unwillingness of the industry to divulge the chemicals it's using?
Absolutely. There's a fresh willingness on the part of the Obama administration to investigate what's happening with fracturing. The study that they're undertaking nationally now is the first since they published a 2004 literature review, which was never a complete scientific study. It's the first time the federal government would really investigate all the causes and possible effects of the fracturing process from a life cycle standpoint. The research that they're undertaking in Wyoming at this point is a separate process, actually, and it's also extremely significant because it's a local endeavor to investigate local complaints of water contamination there. It's not clear yet. The EPA has been very careful to say whether the contamination they're finding in Pavilion, Wyoming is due to drilling, but everybody seems to think that that's what they'll ultimately arrive at, and there are, at this point, some very surprising consistencies, and the EPA is pursuing both of those pretty aggressively.
Well, I'd like to turn to another clip from your film. This is one of Representative Deanna DeGette of Colorado at a hearing.
Out west, we've had a lot of experiences with different kinds of mining techniques that have caused human health risks and severe environmental damage. Now, Mr. John, you say that hydraulic fracturing absolutely does not pose a threat to drinking water. So if that's true, why would you object to the disclosure of the chemicals used in the fracking process under the Safe Drinking Water Act?
As I mentioned earlier, the information packets that we provide to the...
Why would you object? If it's perfectly safe, why would you object to disclosure of the chemicals that are used?
What I was saying was that we have disclosed today and prior to the hearing...
Which chemicals are used?
Yes, ma'am.
In each process?
They're listed in a frac fact sheet that's been provided by
in that case, you would have no objection to my bill.
We've supplied that information.
So would you have an objection to my bill then, since you've already supplied that information?
I'm not personally familiar with your bill, ma'am.
That makes chemicals used in hydraulic fracturing subject to the reporting requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act.
As stated earlier, we believe that the current regulatory framework...
No?
We believe the current regulatory framework...
So yes, you would object to my bill, because you don't think we would need to report it under the Safe Drinking Water Act, even though you say the chemicals are safe. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Kell? Are you saying that hydraulic fracturing fluids cannot possibly be to blame for water contamination seen in cases across the country?
Allegations that were presented through certain media outlets relative to 6 specific states. We did not survey all states that have oil and gas activity, and therefore would not make the statement that no one has ever identified.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Another clip from the documentary Gasland. Josh, your reaction, obviously, for that part of your film, but also I wanted to ask you about a bulletin put out by the Pennsylvania Department of Homeland Security that some critics say is casting aspersions on the critics of this drilling as possible criminals and threatens to stifle open debate. Could you talk about that criticism, which actually mentioned your film?
The Homeland Security memo about environmental extremists,
yes,
which I think is way out of line. I mean, this movement, as I've seen it across the country, and as I've seen hundreds of thousands of people come out on this, literally, because we've been touring every day to different places, and those are very peaceful, nonviolent, not the bottle-throwing crowd, exactly. I think they're listing that in an FBI memo because we were doing this outdoor screening tour. At the same time, it's disturbing that the Pennsylvania Homeland Security, or whoever it was that posted this memo, accidentally sent it to an activist, alerting them to the fact that they were going to look into this or investigate this. And you know, to me, it's unfortunate. I think what's happening here is that you have citizens who've been so frustrated by the lack of investigation of this that you've actually had people doing the science themselves, compiling their own research, following around Halliburton trucks to see where they're illegally dumping waste fluid. And if the EPA is the new sheriff in town and this is the Wild West, we should be deputized. That's what I think. Rather than treat the environmental movement as or the concerned citizens movement as extremists, deputize them so that the information can come across more readily by the people who are gathering on the ground, who are simply trying to figure out what they're being exposed to in their own neighborhoods.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but we're going to continue, obviously, to cover this story. Abrahm Lustgarten has been with us, a reporter at ProPublica. Josh Fox is a director of Gasland. It won the Special Jury Prize for documentary at the Sundance Film Festival, and it opens in theaters nationwide starting September 15th. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a moment.
Tumble and fall down your grandmother's stairway. Hey, the caviar pate you were eating like your airway. Hey, your man serve and deliver the Heimlich without her. May this make you vomit on your Dolce Gabbana. May your wife's worried face show a horrific expression. May you realize she's not worried, that's just Botox injections. May all the commotion cause to crash, shed, live. Propel until your beers shop diamonds from the beers. May your Ferrari break down. May your chauffeur get high and smash up your stretch rolls.